Let's get rid of the useless people in this family. You're first. Lucas didn't even look at me when he said it. He was focused on his plate, cutting into chicken like he was mid-routine, like this was a line he'd tested before and knew would land. My mother laughed immediately, sharp, pleased. My father followed a second later, not because it was funny, but because silence would have meant choosing a side. The sound settled over the table, familiar and comfortable to everyone but me. I kept my hands folded in my lap. That had always been my place at dinner. Still, useful, quiet. The food was warm. The lights were soft. And somehow, I was the only one who felt out of place. No one told him to stop. No one even glanced at me to check my reaction. This wasn't a fight. This was normal. My mother waved a hand in my direction. The way you wave at something irritating but insignificant. All you're good for is your money. She said it without venom. That was the worst part. It didn't need heat because it had repetition behind it. My father sighed, irritated, not at her but at me. Don't act shocked, he said. You know he's right. That was the moment the room closed in. Not because of what was said, but because of who didn't say anything else. There would be no correction. No softening. No one here was uncomfortable except me. Plates were passed. Someone asked for salt. Dinner continued like nothing important had happened. They called it family support. I'd repeated that phrase for years, telling myself it explained everything. The transfers I approved without hesitation. Rent when Lucas forgot to plan. Legal fees when my parents just needed help for a few weeks. Emergency loans that were never repaid. Never even mentioned again. I didn't keep track. I didn't ask for receipts. I told myself this was responsibility. That this was love with paperwork. Eventually I learned the real name for it. Conditioning. Lucas leaned back in his chair, loud and satisfied. The golden child. The one who failed publicly and was forgiven immediately. His recklessness was treated like personality. My reliability was treated like an obligation. You'd be nothing without us, he said, smiling like it was a fact, not an insult, and something inside me finally went quiet, not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. The kind that doesn't spike your heart rate or tighten your throat. The kind that feels like a room going still after machine shuts off. I saw the shape of the table, the pattern of the laughter, the way every benefit flowed one direction. And I understood it all at once. Okay, I said. The word didn't fit the moment the way they expected it to. My mother frowned slightly. My father looked confused, like I'd skipped a line in a script we'd been following for years. Lucas laughed again, but it was thinner now. Uncertain, I stood up. Put on my coat. The movement felt strange, almost weightless. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long I'd forgotten it was there. Until it was gone. The chair scraped softly against the floor. No one reached for me. No one asked where I was going. Halfway to the door, my phone vibrated, scheduled alert. I'd set it months ago, back when I still believed loyalty mattered. Back when I thought being careful and generous might eventually earn me safety. Proof that I hadn't just snapped. I'd planned for this. Quietly. Patiently. I turned back to them. Actually, I said, my voice calm, almost kind. You're right. Let's see who's useless. The room went silent. Not dramatic, confused. They didn't know what I meant yet. They just knew the balance had shifted and they hadn't felt it happen. I reached for the door. My hands were steady. That scared me more than anger ever could. Because anger burns itself out. Clarity doesn't. It hadn't started suddenly. That was the lie I'd been telling myself for years, that this was just how families worked, that everyone pulled weight in different ways, that being needed was the same thing as being valued. From the beginning I learned to fight for scraps of approval. Not openly. Quietly. I brought home straight A's and learned not to announce them. I chased scholarships so no one could accuse me of costing too much. I took a high-paying job early, not because I loved it, but because it solved problems before anyone had to ask. Helping out became a reflex. Silence became a kind of currency. Reliability wasn't something I did. It was who I was allowed to be. The pattern was simple once you stopped arguing with it. Lucas failed and I fixed it. My parents panicked, and I wired money if Lucas missed rent. I covered it. If his business idea collapsed, I smoothed the fallout. If my parents' accounts dipped too low, I filled the gap without being asked, without being thanked. They liked me best when I didn't need anything, when I didn't ask questions, when my life stayed small enough not to inconvenience theirs. Lucas used to joke about it. He called me the family's emergency fund, said it with a grin that made everyone else laugh. My mother laughed every time like it was clever. My father called it being practical. No one ever noticed what it cost me, or maybe they did and decided it was acceptable. Vacations were postponed because someone else needed help right now. Relationships were delayed because I was always busy with family stuff. My savings account emptied itself in quiet increments, one transfer here, another there, each justified as temporary, each one permanent. My life became a series of adjustments around their needs, and I told myself that was maturity. That was love. The night of the dinner when I drove home alone, something strange happened. The memories didn't hurt the way they used to. They lined up. They stacked themselves neatly, like paperwork finally put in the right order. I realized patterns are easier to see when you stop hoping they'll change. Distance. Emotional distance. Doesn't feel dramatic. Feels clean that I wasn't leaving my family. I was letting them stand on their own. That decision didn't announce itself. Just settled. And the next morning the pressure campaign began. Lucas left 3 voicemails before 9 a.m. Each one louder than the last. The first tried humor. The second leaned into anger. By the third, the confidence was cracking, panic leaking through the bravado. My mother followed with a text. "Stop being dramatic. Olas." I didn't respond. I went to work, answered emails, took meetings. Normalcy, I learned, was more unsettling to them than rage. Around noon, Lucas showed up at my office. He paced the lobby like he owned it, like volume could replace authority. People stared. He didn't care. When I finally stepped outside, he rounded on me immediately. "What did you do?" he demanded. It wasn't an accusation. It was fear. Something had moved without his permission. "I stopped fixing things you break," I said. The word surprised both of us. They were calm. Precise. He scoffed, then leaned in, lowering his voice. "Dad's counting on you." The word counting landed heavy. Like a balance sheet. Like a guarantee. In that moment, I understood exactly how they saw me. Not as a person, but as a line item that had gone missing. Lucas straightened, trying to reclaim ground. "You'll regret this," he said. "We're family." That evening my father called. No greeting. No concern. Just an order. "Transfer the money back now." "No," I said. He started to argue. I hung up before he finished. My hands shook afterward. Not from fear, but from the knowledge that something irreversible had begun. Back at my desk, I noticed a framed photo I'd kept there for years. Me at 17, smiling too hard, shoulders tight, eyes already tired. Called it motivation. I understood now it was evidence. I turned the frame face down. Not dramatically. Just decisively. Because the truth was this. I hadn't changed. I'd simply stopped agreeing to disappear. 2 days later, my father hosted a luncheon. Not because he wanted to see me. Because he wanted witnesses. It was one of those carefully staged affairs meant to remind everyone who belonged and who didn't. Linen napkins, rented smiles, people who'd known our family just long enough to believe the version they were shown. I was invited last. Not by call. By text. A single line dropped into my phone like an afterthought. "Family lunch tomorrow. Noon. No apology. No context. Just expectation that I went anyway. Not to reconcile. To observe." The room smelled like citrus and money. Conversations overlapped politely. My mother floated from group to group, performing warmth. Lucas laughed too loud near the bar. When I stepped inside, a few heads turned, curiosity flickering. I took a seat near the edge of the table and folded my hands. The same posture. A different reason. Why father stood once everyone had settled. He lifted his glass gently, waiting for silence the way men like him always do. "I want to say something," he began, voice smooth, practiced. "Because families should be honest with each other." A murmur of agreement. A few nods. "Calla has decided to abandon this family." The words landed cleanly. Heads turned. Someone gasped quietly. The story was already moving without me. "She's cut us off," Lucas added, stepping in like this was rehearsed. "No warning. No explanation. After everything we did for her." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Not cruel, but uncomfortable. A few people clapped uncertainly, unsure what they were applauding but unwilling to be the odd one out. My mother sighed theatrically, shaking her head. "We raised her better than this," she said, like she was mourning a phase. I felt it then, the sharp clarity of being rewritten in real time. My life compressed into a cautionary tale. Their version slid neatly into place. The ungrateful daughter, the selfish one, the caution against generosity. I watched it happen with a strange detachment, like seeing an old photo miscaptioned. I reached into my bag and placed my phone on the table. "If we're sharing stories," I said evenly, "let's share the whole one." I tapped the screen and turned it outward. Rows of dates, amounts, years, transfers stacked like a timeline no one could argue with. Rent, legal fees, loans marked temporary that never ended. Automatic payments that told a more honest story than any speech in the room. The laughter died. Lucas stared, mouth slightly open. My father's glass trembled in his hand. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Silence pressed in from every side. "You didn't raise me," I said. "You built me." The distinction hung there. Nurturing versus engineering. Love versus use. I saw it then, flicker by flicker, fear. Not of being exposed. Of being without me. I stood before anyone could argue. Before explanations could be demanded. I didn't wait for permission. I didn't look back. That night I didn't cry. Planned. Not dramatically. Precisely. I replayed patterns instead of conversations. Assumptions instead of insults. They had always believed my value was tied to access, liquidity, responsiveness, how quickly I could fix what they broke. So I removed access. No explosions. No speeches. Just subtraction. An attorney. Banker. CPA. Each call felt like closing a door gently, not to punish, but to stop absorbing consequences that were never mine. We separated what was mine from what had been mislabeled communal. Untangled co-signed accounts I never controlled. Ended automatic payments set up years ago. Back when I thought responsibility meant permanence, I circled a date on the calendar. The end. When it arrived, I didn't announce anything. System spoke instead. At noon, Lucas's credit card declined at a cafe. At 3, my father's loan triggered a review. Notifications rolled out. Polite, impersonal, irreversible. My phone lit up, then overheated. "Fix it," Lucas demanded. "I can't," I said. "It's not mine anymore. You did this on purpose." "Yes." My parents showed up at my apartment that night. Crying, raging, pleading in turns. My father accused me of destroying the family. "No," I said. "I'm leaving it." The unraveling wasn't sudden. It was worse than that. It was slow. Lucas called less. The anger drained out of him, replaced by something smaller. He started asking questions instead of issuing demands. My parents stopped hosting gatherings they couldn't afford. A few weeks later, their house appeared quietly online. Months passed. I ran into my mother at a bookstore one afternoon. She looked me over like she was waiting for something. Damage, regret, collapse. Instead, she found me laughing with a clerk, planning a trip. "You seem fine," she said. "I am." No bridge offered. No return negotiated. The last time I saw Lucas, he sat across from my father instead of beside him. His hands were folded like a student waiting for grades. "I didn't know how much you did," he said. I believed him. That was the most painful part. I paid for my drink only and left. What they lost wasn't money. It was certainty. The comfort of knowing someone else would absorb the consequences. That night, I deleted the last shared document, turned off my phone, poured a glass of wine and watched the city lights come on. Each one independent, standing on its own. For the first time, so was I. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and share so you don't miss the next story. See you in the next video.